Oh, well, I mean, I've always been interested in the First World War my entire life, really, because Dad used to talk about his father. I mean, my grandfather died in 1940, so I never met him, but obviously I used to hear a lot about him from Dad. And then I was invited to make the film. I mean, the Imperial War Museum, actually, I met with them here about 4 years ago, just down the corridor, and they gave me the brief of, was I interested in doing something for the 1418 now, for the centenary, and the only real... I said, well, what would you like me to do? And they just said, well, what we'd like you to do is to use our film archive in a different way. It took me a little while. I went back to New Zealand and had a thought about it. Then the next idea that popped into my head is, well, I wonder how good we could restore this film. I still didn't really know what the actual film was, but I just thought, well, let's have a look and see how well we can restore it with all the computer. I mean, I was amazed. They sent me like 4 minutes just to test it, and I couldn't believe how good the results were. I literally kind of almost fell off my chair when I saw it. Because it suddenly looks like we can get it looking like modern film. And that was just the black and white to black and white, It's still even in black and white, it looks like it was just shot yesterday. And so then from that point of view, what comes from the restored film is the faces of the soldiers, the men. You actually see them as people. They don't not these jerky, Charlie Chaplin sort of cipher figures. You actually see them as human beings. So then that led to the idea, well, maybe this is a story of the humans that fought this war, not the war itself, but just the human beings. And then I thought, well, okay, the only audio we should have, if that's what we're going to do, is actually the voices of the people that fought there. So then the BBC supplied a lot of tape that they recorded in the 1960s. They were relatively vibrant guys who were speaking very freely of their experiences. And so we ended up with 600 hours of audio to listen to, 100 hours of film. We had to limit it because there's so many worthy parts of the First World War, important parts of the First World War. We could do a once-over lightly, covering everything. I mean, but we decided just to focus on the infantry and the Western Front. There's no flying, there's no navy, there's no home front. There's, obviously the women in factories. I mean, there's lots of film of that, which is a great film. So we just thought, let's just focus on the soldiers this time. And there's other great films that can be made as well on all those other topics. I find it emotional because they're not trying to be emotional, which is, we think of the war, we've sort of victimized these guys in the myth. The 100 years has gone by, they're no longer alive, they're all dead now. And they've sort of, in a way, the popular culture has made them victims. We sent all these men out, all these young guys out to the First World War, into the grind, the mincing machine of the First World War. And they were young men, and it was a mincing machine. But the thing that people aren't taking into account, is that they didn't feel sorry for themselves. In fact, it was probably the most exciting thing that they'd ever done in their lives. I mean, I don't think any of us are going to go through anything as worse than they did. And if they didn't feel sorry for themselves, let's not us feel sorry for ourselves either. I mean, it's a very different process because it's a film where I didn't have to direct any footage, So normally, obviously, in a movie you write a script, and which I didn't. I never wrote a script for this. Then you go out and you shoot a movie, and I never shot a movie. It was all just footage that someone else had shot for me, in a battlefield 100 years ago. So it was really it was a cutting room film, and it happens to be the cutting room is my favourite part of the process. I don't like shooting on set like this. I don't like dealing with all that, and I love it when we get to the cutting room. I sigh with relief, and I'm in my sort of element when I'm filmmaking, when I hit the cutting room. So this was perfect for me, really, in that regard. The shoot's just a pain in the ass, basically. Yeah.